Hi there, welcome to part 2 of our twins' birth story. My name is Cherie. My husband Micah is not going to be joining us for this video, but if you want to watch part 1, that is down below. My husband Micah and I have 3 daughters. Our first daughter, Alina, is about 2 3/4 years old, and then we have 8-month-old twin girls, and this is their birth story. I don't know why, but I'm having the hardest time starting this video. I think it's been about an hour that I've been trying to get started, and I have a really bad stomach ache. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure if I maybe haven't fully emotionally processed what this part of our birth story entailed, but I'm like really nervous to film this, so bear with me. I also really do not like to cry in front of people or on camera, so if I laugh a lot, I'm just trying to keep my emotions in check. To recap part 1 of the video, I was induced with our twins at about 37 weeks and using Pitocin, and that lasted for about 24 hours. And then once I reached full dilation, both babies were head down, so we were gonna attempt a vaginal delivery. I was excited. I was not super nervous. I knew they were gonna be delivering us in the OR. It was just protocol that twin deliveries have to happen in an OR. But I don't know, I feel like I had a pretty good attitude. I kind of just wanted to get things going because after laying in the bed for 24 hours, I was like, okay, I haven't slept in quite a bit and I just wanna get the show on the road. So it took them a long time to bring Micah in, and so by the time Micah was in, I was in a state that I could not enjoy him being there. So first what they did was they moved me onto the delivery table, which I delivered on like a OR table, so definitely not very comfortable. Getting me on the table was actually kind of difficult because my epidural was starting to wear off just before it was time for me to deliver. So they gave me a bolus dose and that just completely wiped my legs out. I couldn't move them. It was, yeah, a lot of effort to get me onto the delivery table. Then once they laid me down, and I need to preface this with like, I was not super scared at this point. I was not having anxiety. I was just like, okay, let's get it going. So what's about to happen is not from me being panicked or scared. I was very like positive and looking forward to this experience. Both the babies are head down, so I was hopeful that we could do vaginal delivery. I was in very good spirits at this point. They laid me down, and after a little bit, like less than a minute, all of a sudden between my shoulder blades tightened up so strongly. It was like the worst Charlie horse of my entire life, and there was no relief. It was just constant, and I started to get, look at my ears turning red right now. Okay, hold on. It's like starting to come back to me, and it's like, okay. You know what I think is happening? When I've told this story to people, people have kind of laughed it off as me being like, I made it worse for myself in my head. And I feel like that really negates what happened to me. I reserved 10 out of 10 for like, I want to die pain. So I'm gonna go with like 9. It was so painful, and it just wouldn't, I think because it wouldn't let up. My whole body was tense. It was so excruciating. I don't like to let other people other than Micah see me like cry out in pain, and I was almost screaming. Okay, sorry. So I was almost screaming. It was so painful. I was definitely yelling and everyone around me was looking at me like I was nuts. Still, no one was really talking to me. they were just looking at me like I was weird. And I felt so helpless because I was trying to tell them, it's my back, it's my back. My back is so painful right now. And no one was like trying to help me. They were just kind of standing there. And so I wanted to get on my side to see if that would help, but I couldn't move because of the bolus dose from the epidural completely wiped off my lower body strength or control. So I was pulling the gurney thing that I was on to try to roll myself over. And so when they got me all the way to my side, the pain like completely went away. I was like, okay, that's weird. So they laid me back down and I was like, okay. Sure enough, within the minute, it just tightened back up so strong. I asked them to push me up to see if that would help, and that took it away too. So I was like, weird. So we waited a little bit for the doctor to come in. This thing that happened with my back is an actual thing that happens following an epidural. It's something about when they lay you flat, it just causes this severely painful, other patients that had this also described it as one of the worst pains they've ever experienced, 9 or 10 out of 10 pain. And they don't know exactly why it happens. I don't think there's enough patients that they can research what's going on, but the theory, I guess, is that it has something to do with the epidural. And if you watched part 1 where I had my epiphany about the guy that did my epidural, it makes more sense because I'm pretty sure it was not placed in the best of techniques or in the best of ways. And so I think that maybe that had something to do with it. But anyways, it's this rare occurrence. When I say I've researched it, I mean I read research articles about this. It's a real thing. And also the whole time this was going on, Micah was not there. And so now at this point, after many minutes of this going on and this excruciating pain that I've never felt before, and nobody giving me answers, no one even asking me what it feels like, where is it, what, like nothing from the health professionals. In my head, I was like, I'm gonna tell Micah what's going on and he'll be able to like be my support, my rock, like he can communicate for me. Because to remind you, I'm like screaming out in pain, so it was difficult to talk. Finally, the nurse to my right asked if I would want her to hold on to some pressure points under my back, because I told her where the pain was. And so we tried that and it helped. It brought the pain down to like manageable. Like it was maybe 5 out of 10, maybe 6 out of 10, but totally manageable compared to what it was. But when she would let go, it would like surge back up again. And so finally, it felt like I had a game plan. This nurse over here was gonna hold my pressure points, and Micah was finally there and he was holding my hand, and we were gonna go. We were gonna push. It was time to push. And I was like, yes, just get me pushing because that helps. Because they did like a test push and I was like, thank God the pain has gone away. So baby A, which was Everly, she was out in about 3 contractions. So pretty fast, no complications. I didn't tear. That all went perfectly fine. And I was like, sweet. She came out easily. Let's get the next one out. Before we move on to Eden, I do want to talk about once Everly was born. When they placed her on me, I was just so relieved and happy going through a higher risk pregnancy or a twin pregnancy, and Everly was the smaller one, and I remember thinking my whole pregnancy that I don't understand. I couldn't see it. Like I couldn't see how we could possibly get to delivery day and all of us end up healthy. Like I just was like preparing for the worst but hoping for the best. And so to have her born when she was the one I was particularly worried about because she was just smaller and the size difference between them was getting bigger and bigger as the days were going on. I just was so happy, and I just knew how to be her mother, and I just knew exactly how to hold her. I knew exactly what to do with her. I think I like shooed one of the nurses away because I was just like, no, I'm good. And I just like was in that moment with her, and I was so happy with her and just so grateful. Like, I couldn't believe that she was there, and I just completely forgot about this traumatic extreme pain that I was just going through a few minutes before. So it was a very special moment and a very, I don't know, empowering moment. Like, I just felt like I'm her mother. I know what to do with her. She's mine. We are one. Like, I felt like Earth Mother Goddess in that moment. Like, everything is fine. It was lovely. And then everyone was just kind of waiting around. No one checked me or anything for a while. They were like, let's just see what happens. And then after about 5 minutes, they checked me and said, oh, it looks like your cervix closed back up to like 5 centimeters. Like, what? So they had discussed with me that they would maybe have to like go in and get, sorry if that was graphic, but they had to go in and get the second twin. I was like, okay, so that's what they're gonna do. But that was not, because I guess I closed up too small, that it wasn't an issue of guiding her out. They were just like, we can't do anything. So they sent me back to my room to go back on Pitocin and wait until Eden was ready. That was disappointing, but one of the nurses was like, at least now you don't have to deliver in the OR for the second one. I'm like, okay. Everly stayed with us for a little bit before she went down to the NICU, and I did get to try to breastfeed her. So I was trying to hand express, and I ended up starting to make a ton of colostrum. Micah and I could not believe it because I struggled with low milk supply with Alina. And so the fact that I was making all this colostrum, like way more than normal, was very exciting for us. So I just kept doing that until it was time to deliver Eden. However, as I was progressing and dilating, the doctor would come in and check, and he informed us that unfortunately Eden had flipped. So she was now sunny side up and was pushing hard against my pelvis. So the doctor would go in and try to turn her, but it just was not working. So at 8 centimeters, he tried again really hard to turn her, and he was like, honestly, I'm afraid to do more because right now it's like Exorcist, where I'm able to turn her head, but if I turn it anymore, like her body's not going with it, and so I'm worried about like doing more damage. So we're gonna wait till you get to 10 centimeters, maybe then we can move her, but if not, like, brace yourself, you might need to get a C-section. So this is how we got to the title of this video. So Eden came 12 hours after Everly. It took 12 hours to get back to 10 centimeters, and doctor tried again, could not turn her. He did his best. We did a few practice pushes. Just he wanted to see what she would do when I would push, if he could deliver her sunny side up. And then he was like, stop. And he was like trying to figure something out and told us, you know what, I don't want you to push anymore. What's happening is she's tilting so far back that he was worried, I guess, that she was gonna break her neck or injure her neck or something like that. So he was like, okay, we gotta do a C-section. And again, I was not scared. I have had friends that have had C-sections, and they were like, honestly, it was super fine. And so I was like, okay, well, At least I'm numb. Like, let's just get this baby out. Again, I was not that worried about it. So they wheeled me back into the OR. Again, it took them a really long time to let Micah in. And then comes trauma number 2. It sounds like I'm being dramatic, but it really was traumatic. So same thing as Everly, they put me back onto the OR delivery table and laid me down, and I was fine for like a minute. I was like, oh good, I don't have that back pain when I'm flat. That must have just been a fluke. And then it came back. So at least this time I knew what to ask people to do for me, but sometimes they needed me to just stay flat and they told me not to move, and that was so excruciating. Again, just like letting out whimpers and cries of pain. And these new nurses were also looking at me like I was crazy. I just wish that someone had been a little more compassionate and like tried to talk to me about it and like talk me through it or help me breathe through it or something. Micah wasn't there and I'm just screaming in pain and everyone's just standing there. I just wish that someone had done that for me. They needed to check the epidural anesthesia, how well it was working in order to start the C-section. So they, I guess, had the scalpel, and I think around this time was when they brought Micah in. So again, Micah came in like when action was happening. He was just like, whoa, I didn't get to like calm her down or anything. And so they were already like trying to cut, and they were like, okay, you should feel some pressure, but it shouldn't be sharp, okay? Let us know if it's sharp. And they would start, and I was like, oh, okay, that's really sharp. Like I can definitely feel the scalpel. And they're like, no, it's just like pressure, right? It just feels like I'm pushing you. And I was like, no, it feels like you're like something sharp. Like I can feel it very fine and, you know, pinpoint. So they're like, okay, let's add more. So the anesthesiologist, I guess, I don't know if he gave me a bolus dose or what to my epidural, but he added something. They waited a little bit, tried again. Nope, could still feel it, was still sharp. He added something again and it was still sharp. So he was like, I'm calling it, we gotta do a spinal. So they prepped me to do a spinal block. So I was like, okay, let's get this spinal going. Maybe it will help with my back pain. It took them a while to place that too. But they finally got it, and it took several people to hold me up because I was like leaning to the side. I had no control. But they finally placed it and laid me down, and I was so excited because my back pain was gone. I felt so relaxed. It was wonderful, like way better than an epidural. But as they were prepping me and they asked like, can you feel this? I was like, nope, can't feel it. We're good. Just as I said that, I started to kind of feel nauseous, and I knew that that was probably from the anesthesia or the spinal block. So I was like, okay, I'm getting nauseous. So I was looking at Mike and I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I feel like I'm gonna throw up. And so he was like, oh, you know, telling the anesthesiologist she's getting really nauseous. So he added something to the concoction to help with the nausea, but it couldn't come quick enough. I was just like, I have to throw up. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't talk. I wanted and needed them to at least roll my upper body to the side so I don't throw up right on myself and aspirate it. And so I was starting to panic because I was like, where is my barf bag? I'm going to aspirate. So I was dealing with that, you know, nausea and all that. That started to go away, but I was starting to also have a difficult time breathing. And I also want to be clear, this was not difficulty breathing like because they were pushing or getting eaten out. This was like I was suffocating, and then I couldn't really move my arms. I had very limited mobility of my arms. and then I had this issue with my breathing. I was trying to gasp for air without being able to signal that I was unable to breathe. So I was very afraid and like, somebody please help me. And Micah could figure out that I felt like I wasn't breathing. The anesthesiologist was like, "You're breathing." And then he turned away. And in my head, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm gonna die. Like, truly thought I was gonna die because I fully felt like I was not breathing. I was suffocating to death is what it felt like. And the anesthesiologist just turned away to go do something. And no one knows that I'm unable to breathe. So I'm looking at Micah with like terror in my eyes. And he asked the anesthesiologist again, I think. And so he came over and asked if I wanted oxygen. And I was like, yes, you know, without talking, but like, so he put the oxygen on and it helped just enough that I felt like I wasn't gonna die, but I felt like I was getting some air. And all he said to me was, "You're obviously breathing or the monitor would be beeping." And then he walked away again. And so at least I had the oxygen, but in my head I was like, their machines must be broken because I clearly was not breathing. The oxygen was pretty forceful. He was like forcing the oxygen, which I think helped me feel like I was breathing. Now this is another part of the story where when I tell it, people reacted like I was just probably panicking. And that is not what was happening. I was stoked that that spinal took away my back pain. I was like, yay! And I was looking forward to this wonderful moment and at least getting the cute pictures of my C-section baby next to my face with the curtain and like me and Micah holding her. I was like very much looking forward to this and just having it all be over and my baby's here and healthy. And the whole breathing thing was absolutely terrifying. After looking into it again, I realized what I think I had was a high spinal is what I think they're called. They are more common after a long labor, after having an epidural and then changing to a spinal block. All these factors that I was like, check, 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 check. All these things happened to me. I truly wish that someone had just explained to me, or the anesthesiologist could have stopped and been like, hey, I know it feels like you're not breathing, but we're watching you on the monitor. This sometimes happens with spinal blocks. Don't worry, you're okay. Like, if someone had just explained to me, this happens sometimes, I feel like that would have taken so much of the terror away. I mean, it still would have been terrifying AF because you just can't feel yourself breathe. But I feel like if someone had walked me through that, like, no, you're not gonna die, that could have brought it down so much more for me. I remember fading out, hearing Eden's cry really soft, like she was so far away from me, and thinking to myself, at least I got them out. And then I just knocked out. Like, that was my last thought, was like, I got them out and now I'm gonna die. Like, it was so scary. And like hoping like Micah would be okay with all of them. And then I woke up 2.5 hours later in recovery, and we never like got an explanation about what happened to me. I'm gonna request my medical records because I really think it would bring a lot of closure to know exactly what happened. Because Micah said then, a little while after that, the doctor that did the C-section told someone else, like a resident or whoever, that they could finish closing me up. But then they noticed I was hemorrhaging, so they called the doctor back in and they had to do something to fix the hemorrhaging problem. Something that I didn't know until much later, Micah told me and showed me pictures, was that my poor Eden had been pushing against my pelvis for so long that her head was super swollen and like black and blue and like misshapen. And that always makes me cry when I look at that picture, because for it to get to that point, like, she must have been pressing so hard. Like, that must have been painful. I just feel so bad, and I always wonder if they had just like not waited that like 5 minutes after Everly was born, if someone had just gone up and guided Eden out, if that could have like prevented that. I mean, everyone is fine now, but just like, it's so sad to see her like that. Part 3 is gonna be my recovery from this ordeal of a birth, and it was rough. Like, rough. That's gonna need its own video. I do want to say before ending this video that I know it can come off like I'm complaining and like I should be more grateful. I am so grateful. Like, I just want to make that super clear. I would go through that same birth experience. I would go through what I went through with the egg retrieval. Like, I would do everything, like my recovery after this birth. Like, I would go through all of it again, because I have the 3 most perfect babies. And we almost might not have been able to have any. And so, like, now being on the other side of it, like, who cares what happens to me? Like, I was just so glad that I got my daughters. And I just wanted to clarify, because I know, especially for people who are going through infertility now, I know it's hard to listen to people complain about things that happen to them when they get to have babies, and you're struggling and you're still waiting to have your babies. And I so get it, and I don't take it for granted at all. But this is just, I just wanted to tell the story. And again, things happened to me that I didn't know about before they happened. And so hopefully this helps someone. If you go in and you get this weird, severe upper back pain when they lay you flat, like, hopefully you know what to do. And if you get a high spinal, hopefully you know, no, you are not suffocating. You just can't feel yourself breathe. I was telling myself for months that I must just be weak, and that's not true. Like, just sucky things happened to me that were really painful or really scary, and I really need to remind myself to be more proud of getting through this stuff versus embarrassed. I'm mad at myself for doubting what I knew in my head. That is basically how the twins got here and why they were 12 hours apart. If you got to the end of this video, props to you. I know it was a lot, but I really love hearing other people's birth stories. So if you want to share your birth story below, or if you are even on YouTube, I would love to watch other people's birth stories. That's like the first question I ask friends when I see them after they've given birth, is like, if you want to, I would love to hear like all about your birth. I think everyone's birth story is so unique, and the emotions that go along with it are also just as unique. And I think it's important not to quantify someone's emotions. Everyone goes through things differently, and I think if you can just be there to be a listening ear to someone and let them process what they've been through, I think that's the best thing you can do as the person on the listening end. So thank you guys for listening to me and like helping me process. This was literally very helpful. Like I said, I had a really hard time actually starting this video. So I was just so worried about what people would think, or if they would, like, if they would just think, again, like, oh, you're just a wuss. I hope that I was able to convey how I felt about everything. So thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. We're going to be posting more videos. We've also been doing some vlogs with the girls. So check it out and give us a big thumbs up. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.